Hi everyone, this is the India Story, and this is the week where all the rich and the famous seem to be in Davos. Certainly all the big global leaders, the big corporate tycoons, and of course the Indian delegation. And that's important. The presence of the Indian delegation is important because I can tell you, having been there for more years than I can count, there is no better place on the planet to tell the India story than in Davos. And that's because, and this may be interesting to many of you, when you hear that, oh, the rest of the world doesn't care about the India story and they don't want India to do well and they're not well-wishers of India, actually, that's not quite true. Because in Davos, and I've been hearing this for the last 20 years, there is nothing that the global leaders and the global CEOs and the powerful people who are out there want more than for the India story to succeed. They want India to do well. They really, really want India to do well. And the reason for this is obvious. There are 1.4 billion people in India. It's the largest market in the world by the end of this year. India is going to overtake China in population. And they don't want to put all their eggs in their China basket. China is fast becoming a bad name across the world. In just a couple of minutes on this show, we're going to be joined by the leader of the Indian delegation, one of the leaders of the Indian delegation, the Minister for IT, Communications and Railways, Mr. Ashwini Vaishnaw. We're also going to be joined by the Health Minister, Mansukh. They're going to be telling us what they are telling the world at Davos. Two of the key aspects being highlighted for the India story this time are digital India and health, and they're the two ministers in charge of that. To further understand those two themes, we will also be joined by Sunil Mittal of Airtel and Adar, Poonawalla, of course, the person who was behind the Covishield vaccine right here in India. But before we speak to any of these people, let's just quickly take a look at some of the top headlines you should be tracking this week.
India is expected to overtake China this year as the world's most populous country, says the United Nations. With over 27% of its population aged between 15 and 29, India is also among the youngest countries in the world. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif extends offer for talks with India, says Pakistan has learned its lesson from 3 wars and wants peace now. The Pakistan government, however, adds that talks can only take place after Article 370 action is revoked. Layoffs continue in the tech world. Indian unicorn ShareChat lays off 20% of its staff in a bid to cut costs, while startup Go Mechanic has laid off 70% of its workforce. Microsoft also mulls thousands of job cuts across the world. Non-resident Indians will soon be able to make digital payments using UPI without having an Indian number, says the National Payments Corporation of India. The move is aimed at facilitating easier transactions, and the mechanisms will be in place by April 30th.
So this essentially is what the Indian delegation is saying. Come to India, believe in India, invest in India. India is where your growth can happen, where your companies should be, where your factories should be. Now, to be honest, this is not the first time that all of this has been stated at Davos. The India story has been repeatedly, I remember India shining in 2005, many other times when that India story has been repeated. But this time, there is fertile ground. These are times of gloom and doom across the world. There are forecasts of a global recession in 2023. But the IMF says that India is a bright spot in the world economy. India is already the 5th largest economy in the world, having overtaken the United Kingdom last year. By 2027, it could become the 3rd largest. There are many reasons why this time the world is bullish on the Indian economy. India has a world-class digital infrastructure. That's a theme that is being repeated. It's a constant leader in renewables and green energy. That's a theme that is being stressed upon. The fact that India's climate change performance is number 1 among the G20 countries, certainly from a per capita point of view. India is also talking about the impressive response to COVID, which saw the country administering more than 2.2 billion vaccines. And by the way, all of these are not just hypothetical points, and this is there's actually reason to believe some of these stories, and that's why investment is flowing to India, and that's something else that the delegation is telling the rest of the world. They're talking about the fact that annual FDI has more than doubled in 8 years, going from some $35 billion in 2013 to around $84 billion in 21-22. India's talking about the fact that there's been a 3.8 times growth in private equity and venture capital investments as compared to a 1.9 times average for the world. But also India is underlining, and this is something which India has always underlined at Davos, we are a stable, we're a democratic regime. This is something that the rest of the world is particularly interested in. Today we say the fastest growing large economy. There used to be a big signs that you would see in Davos saying fastest growing free economy, setting India apart from the autocratic decision-making style that we see from countries like China, which can impose and take away policies on a whim. Now, of course, this does not mean that everything has been achieved already. There's a lot of work to be done right here. And of course, here on the India Story, we're going to be tracking all those developments. But this is a very important year for India, and that's why it's great that the year's beginning with a clear telling of the India Story at Davos. And joining us now is one of the leaders of the Indian delegation, the Minister for Railways, Communication, Electronics and IT, Mr. Ashwini Vaishnaw. Mr. Vaishnaw, thank you so much for talking to us. Give us an idea, sir, what the mood is like at Davos. This year in particular, India appears to be one of the bright spots among all the gloom and the doom that is there in the global economy. Is that the sense you're getting when you meet from people? What are they telling you? What are they saying about India?
There is a lot of excitement about India. A lot of things people want to understand. People have a serious concern about the global economy and the turbulence which is there in the global economy. And people see India as a bright spot. Most of the business leaders and other ministers that I've met so far, they very clearly feel happy about the way Prime Minister Modi ji managed the economy through this pandemic, managed the vaccination program through the pandemic. And what people used to think about India has totally changed now. One good thing is people understand that India took a very rational approach where Prime Minister Modi ji, instead of putting entire focus on consumption, had a very good balance of consumption, focused consumption and good focus on investment. And that is being understood by the economists, by the senior policymakers. And that's a good thing which everybody is talking about India.
But if we just turn to some of the specifics, one of the clear things that I think India has gone ahead of most countries in the world it's in digital technologies and specifically the India stack. That's something that your ministry has also been driving. Are you hearing a lot of buzz about the India stack, and is that being perceived as something that gives India a technological edge?
So you're right. People are recognizing the reforms that Prime Minister Modi ji did in the telecom sector. We met some senior telecom global leaders recently, and one of the global leaders actually said that he has not seen anything like this in his entire lifetime. So that's a very big statement. A global telecom technology firm saying that what's happening in India has not been, he has not seen that kind of excitement, that kind of work anywhere in his entire lifetime. So that's a big statement on what Prime Minister's reform program is today delivering in the telecom sector. Same is the thing about India's digital stack, the India stack. There is a lot of excitement about India telecom stack. People are talking about the manufacturing base in railways shifting from other geographies to India. So there is lot of excitement about Make in India, about India stack, about the telecom story, about the overall economic management of the country.
Right. So, as you lead the Indian delegation there, what are the sort of takeaways that you expect to come back? One is just to evangelize the India story, but are there any other specific expectations that you've come with, MOUs, big ticket investments? What is really on the cards for India at Davos?
So the focus is on making sure that people understand India's story thoroughly, one. Second, as much investment that we can bring to the country. And In the meeting so far, we have got three persons very categorically, three very large corporations, categorically saying that they are expanding the India footprint. One of them actually said that they are closing down one of their plants in Europe and shifting the entire manufacturing base to India. So that is the kind of takeaway that we are expecting here. It's a good thing. People want to understand India's long-term story better, and people want to understand India's macro fundamentals. So this is what we are discussing, and all these lead into more confidence about the country, more confidence about Prime Minister's reforms program, more confidence about Prime Minister's economic strategy.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Vaishnaw. I know you've got a really packed schedule minute by minute, so we'll allow you to go, but thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Ashwini Vaishnaw, the Minister for IT Communications, Railways, and one of the leaders of the Indian delegation there. But let's also now speak to one of the biggest voices of Indian industry from India Inc., who's there. Sunil Bharati Mittal, the chairman of Airtel, one of India's biggest telecom players. And Mr. Mittal, you're somebody who's been at Davos for what, 2 decades, 2.5 decades. I've been seeing you out there at Davos. Every time there's some years when there's a lot of buzz about India and some years where there's a little less. In all this time that you've been spending there at Davos, how are you rating and perceiving India's place at Davos this year and the reaction to India this year?
Well, at the outset, I would say there's a transformation as far as India's image is concerned. Having seen it over the last over 2 decades, I have seen from the fringes from where we operated to now being in the center stage of what's happening here in Davos, which represents the global investing community, global economic players, and of course the political leadership. India is walking tall, India's stature is different, India's voice is being heard, and more importantly, everybody's trying to understand how they can enter and invest into India. Many people who are here are already big investors in India. They want to double up. And those who are still not into India are feeling very left out. So I would say it's a proud moment for India. India is at a stage and point where when you enter the panels and Congress Hall and the promenade, I think we are walking very tall. And India is looking very, very confident, very strong.
Well, Mr. Mittal, always at Davos, there's a lot of talk about the opportunities in India and the optimism around India, but also a lot of talk about the challenges that there are. So let's address some of those challenges. Obviously, there's a lot of work still to be done. What, according to you, are some of the biggest concerns that India should be addressing right now?
Well, infrastructure continuously need investment, and that's where I think the government is focused on. Very large amounts of monies have been earmarked for infrastructure. Indian roads, ports, airports, rail, shipping, all these need to develop and to capture the growth that we are seeing ahead for ourselves in India. Digital, as I told you, is done, but there are many hard infrastructure that needs to be built out. Ease of doing business, we need to continuously harvest our gains in that area. We should not slide back, keep on coming out with policies that are more forward-looking, that are making easy for investments and business to grow in India. I think that's the only area, and thankfully our Prime Minister's mantra is ease of doing business, and that if everybody adopts and takes it forward, will make it very easy for doing business in India.
Mr. Sunil Mittal, the chairperson of Airtel and someone who's been at Davos for a long time. Now I'd like to welcome a really special guest. The Health Minister, Mr. Mansukh is now joining us. We're talking about the digital stack, but one of the clear things that is also creating a lot of buzz at Davos is the healthcare sector here, and in particular India's handling of COVID-19, contrasting that with whatever's happened in China. Also a lot of talk about whether India can become the pharmacy of the world, and certainly the provider of chemicals to the world. And who better to talk about that than India's Minister for Health and Family Welfare, also looking at chemicals. India's vaccination program is being spoken about by many people. They're contrasting it with what has happened in China. And India is, of course, increasingly being known as one of the pharmacies of the world. But there is a new threat also coming out of China right now. What, sir, are you hearing about the handling of COVID, and what do you think the opportunities are that India can take advantage of?
देश में आज तक हमने कोविड मैनेजमेंट के लिए जो स्ट्रेटेजी अपनाई है उसमें वैक्सीनेशन एक इम्पोर्टेंट पार्ट था, और आज इंडिया ने 2.2 बिलियन डोज एडमिनिस्टर कर दिया है, बहुत बड़ी बात है। उसमें फर्स्ट डोज, सेकंड डोज और प्रिकॉशन डोज भी शामिल है। आने वाले दिनों में देश में कोविड से बचाने के लिए हम लोगों ने सर्वेलेंस सिस्टम स्ट्रॉन्ग की है। अभी दुनिया में जिस तरह से कोविड फैल रहा है उसको देखते हुए सभी पोर्ट पर, एयरपोर्ट पर, सी पोर्ट पर सर्वेलेंस हो रहा है, टेस्टिंग हो रहा है और कोई केस पॉजिटिव पाया जाए तो उसको तुरंत ही जीनोम सीक्वेंसिंग में भेजा जा रहा है। जीनोम सीक्वेंसिंग में जो भी वेरिएंट पाया जाता है तो तुरंत ही हमारी वैक्सीन उसके पर क्या इफेक्ट करती है उसकी भी स्टडी की जाती है। इस तरह से कोविड मैनेजमेंट के लिए हम लोग एक्टिवली परमानेंट काम कर रहे हैं और हम फार्मेसी ऑफ द वर्ल्ड है। दुनिया में वैक्सीन का मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हो, इंडिया में जेनरिक मेडिसिन का मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हो, उसके लिए इंडियन कंपनी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कर रही है। जो दुनिया फार्मा सेक्टर में इन्वेस्ट करना चाहते हैं वो इंडिया के साथ जॉइंट वेंचर कर रहे हैं ताकि इंडिया का भी मार्केट और ग्लोबली मार्केट भी एनकेस हो पाए। और भारत सरकार ने भी फार्मा सेक्टर को और आगे बढ़ाने के लिए आत्मनिर्भर भारत तहत PLI 1 14,000 करोड़ रुपीस, PLI 2 15,000 करोड़ रुपीस देश के लिए लॉन्च की है और उसमें 3 बड़े बल्क ड्रग पार्क बन रहे हैं, 4 मेडिकल डिवाइस पार्क बन रहे हैं ताकि देश में डायग्नोस्टिक और वैक्सीन मैन्युफैक्चरिंग और मेडिसिन फॉर्मुलेशन एंड API मैन्युफैक्चरिंग की जो अपार संभावनाएं हैं उसको एनकेस करते हुए देश और फार्मेसी ऑफ द वर्ल्ड से आगे बढ़ने की दिशा में काम कर रहा है।
आपने फार्मेसी ऑफ द वर्ल्ड की बात करी, पर जैसे आप जानते हैं कि जो भी रॉ मटेरियल्स हैं वो ज्यादातर चाइना से इंपोर्ट किए जाते हैं। अगर भारत को इस इलाके में आत्मनिर्भर बनना है तो क्या किया जा सकता है? व्हाट कैन बी डन टू मेक इंडिया सेल्फ रिलायंट एंड सेल्फ सफिशिएंट व्हेन इट कम्स टू इंपोर्ट्स ऑफ रॉ मटेरियल्स फ्रॉम चाइना?
उसमें सबसे महत्वपूर्ण विषय यह है कि हम हमारी क्रिटिकल रिक्वायरमेंट पर किसी के पर डिपेंडेंट नहीं रहना चाहते। फर्स्ट यू सी दैट इन डिफेंस सेक्टर हमने कई रिलैक्सेशन देके कई व्यवस्था खड़ी करके आज देश में प्राइवेट सेक्टर के साथ पार्टनरशिप करके प्राइवेट सेक्टर के लिए डिफेंस मैन्युफैक्चरिंग ओपन करके हम कई चीज़ें इंडिया में बनाने लगे हैं ताकि हम रिक्वायर, पहले तो ऐसा था कि केवल बुलेट के लिए भी हम दूसरी कंट्री पर डिपेंड करना पड़ता था। वैसे ही आज जो क्रिटिकल API है, ऐसे 53 API हम लोगों ने आइडेंटिफाई किया था जो हम ज़्यादातर इंपोर्ट पर ही डिपेंड थे। और ये डिपेंडेंसी कम करने के लिए हमने देश में ही API बनाने के लिए PLI स्कीम को लॉन्च किया था। और ये PLI स्कीम का आउटपुट ये निकला कि आज हम 53 में से 39 API इंडिया में ऑलरेडी बनाना चालू कर दिया है ताकि हम दुनिया पर डिपेंड ना रहे। वैसे हमने बल्क ड्रग पार्क 1,000 करोड़ रुपीस पर 1 बल्क ड्रग पार्क यानी कि API मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इंडिया में ही हो, उसके लिए भी इनिशिएटिव लिया है ताकि भविष्य में हमारी क्रिटिकल रिक्वायरमेंट के लिए हम किसी पर आधारित ना रहे और देश को आत्मनिर्भरता की ओर आगे ले जाए।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मैं जानता हूं आपके पास बहुत कम समय होगा, हम इस पर आपसे बाद में भी चर्चा करेंगे। थैंक यू सो मच फॉर योर टाइम। वेल, टॉकिंग अबाउट फार्मेसी एंड टॉकिंग अबाउट वैक्सीनेशंस।
थैंक यू।
Well, talking about vaccinations, who better to talk to than Adar, Poonawalla, the CEO of the Serum Institute of India, the Covishield man, telling us about the vaccination program and what further progress he sees actually happening. Adar, first of all, the key things that you're hearing out there in Davos, what's the buzz around the India story this year?
Well, you know, with what's happening all over the world, everyone's looking at India, especially now, based on our quality, our ability to manufacture, our economy, which is, you know, recovered much faster than most other economies in the world out of this pandemic. So everyone's looking at India for not only investment, but also to partner and innovate. And, the theme here today is cooperation. And there aren't many other places, as I've been mentioning, if you look at in terms of manufacturing and services that can be offered beyond India. So, you know, it's a very exciting moment to be representing India and everyone here. So we are looking forward to all the collaborations that we're going to see later on in the day.
But something that I'm sure is of particular interest to you, how does the world feel about India's role as a vaccine manufacturer? Is there an appreciation for what happened, and is everyone looking at you and saying you've got to take care of it?
Well, India has already been known as the pharmacy of the world. Even during the pandemic, we helped more than 70 to 80 other nations providing vaccines, medicines and other pharmaceutical drugs, whilst at the same time taking care of our very large and diverse population. So that was a testament, and everyone here has been appreciating that, you know, how we managed that. And, the capacity of vaccines, for example, in India is close to 10 billion now. We've got 4 billion coming out of Serum Institute and various other manufacturers also in India who've scaled up on their capacity.
All right, now that we have you on the line, let's get some quick medical advice from you. Coming to boosters, a lot of people, of course, fully vaccinated in India. Many people have got their precaution dose or their first booster, although not everybody. What is your sense of it? Obviously, everyone should get their booster if they haven't already done that. But do you think there's a need for a fourth booster or even yearly booster shots?
Well, boosters is a tricky thing. Certain countries and certain people at an elderly age or vulnerable age need boosters, and especially some of the new vaccines from Novavax, for example, work very well against Omicron. And those are the kind of boosters one should look at if you want to boost, every year or once in 2 years. So the policies will be out very soon on that. But India, as you know, has already been quite successful in their booster program. A lot of people have come forward to take the free boosters provided by the government of India. And it's been a very successful program that the government of India has run with the records of vaccination coverage, especially in such a large population. I think India is number one in terms of vaccination coverage compared to any other country at the moment.
Adar, Poonawalla, thank you so much for joining us. And that's all we have time for today on the India Story. And I can tell you the India Story doing really well in Davos this year. A lot of optimism around India this year. This is likely and expected to be a good year for India. But, of course, lots of things that we need to do to make sure that potential continues to translate into actuality. And we'll continue to track that progress for you through the year. But bye for now.